page punchers.
Well, what the heck? There's so many page punchers to go through today, so let's just jam them all into one video. Today we have the Injustice 2 Batman and Green Arrow, while we also have Gorilla Grodd, the Atom, Captain Cold, and Heatwave. Of course, each one of these guys all comes with a comic, although, as I mentioned before, I think it would make more sense to include part of the story with each character. And now, through the magic of editing, we have them all out of their packaging and standing before us, ready to be reviewed, critiqued, and fiddled with. So, why don't we start things off with, I'm guessing most people's favorite, the Batman, who measures in at just under 2 Batmans tall. This is probably one of the best figures in the entire review today. The sculpting looks slick. Paint applications on mine look very well done, and I know exactly where this figure is from just by looking at it. This Batman comes with 2 of these batarangs, and these are also really well done. Are they accurate, though? Now, I know that perhaps some people have an issue with Batman's emblem on his chest not being dark enough, wanting it to stand out a little bit more from the rest of the gray of his suit. As you can see, it does blend in quite a lot. I may go the route of customizing the bat to be a slightly different color. I haven't decided yet. This is an incredibly well-detailed figure. The texture's all in the black there. It's not just smooth. The armor plating on his legs and also down here on his midriff. You have, of course, the plating on his torso. You have his shoulder pads. They're a nice soft plastic. They're going to get out of the way. You have more plating, more armor here, the scallops. This is just incredibly well done. There's not one thing that I can say looking at this figure that I'm like, ah, man, he kind of missed it on this one. This one is really good. Even the cape. I really like the cape. This figure is, yeah, it's really well done. As for the face sculpt here, sometimes Todd drops the ball and the face doesn't look like what it's intended to, but this one looks exactly spot on. If you're wondering just how articulated this version of Batman is, well, I am too. Let's find out together. Whoa, that's quite a bit of a range of motion in the torso. Forward, though, as usual, not so good. Yeah, definitely not so good. That's kind of sad, but every other range you'd want him to have, he does quite well there. He's got the articulation in his noodle. That's not bad. That's okay. Can he look up to shoot his back grapple? Not the best, but I think adequate. Can he look down to see if his boots are untied? Yep, pretty darn good. He's got the rounded hinge with the socket. It's going to have 360 swivel there at the bicep, double jointed elbows, rounded hinge at the wrist. The soft rubber here just goes right out of the way. As always, of course, it's going to look weird when you try to raise your arm when you got these great big pauldrons, but you know, either you attach the pauldrons right to the arm and then the pauldrons move with your arm, or you attach them on the shoulder. The waist also has that full range of motion. Plenty of articulation there. Down here in the groin, he's got the same bat-ticulation as the rest. Look at that. I didn't even notice that. There's different details right here on the inside of his legs. This is fantastic. I like this a lot. All right, let's see what he gets. Ooh, yeah, not so good, Al. That could be a little bit better. Double jointed knees at the knee pads, and they look about par for the course for McFarlane Toys knee joint. We've also got, of course, the molded ankles here with the rounded hinge and the ankle pivot and the toe articulation. So, not too bad as far as articulation goes, and I can tell you this is my favorite figure out of all of the figures I'm going to review today. Not just because it's Batman, he just looks so slick. And now let's do Green Arrow. At first glance, you'd look at this figure and go, well, it's pretty much the exact same figure as the previous Injustice version of Green Arrow, only this one's got a big old mask and his Robin Hood hat. And if I hadn't taken a slightly closer look myself, I would have said you were right. However, having even a cursory look at these two side by side, and you can tell that there are some pretty major differences. This version of Green Arrow does not have the straps around his legs with the throwing knives attached to it and whatnot, and they haven't painted any of the lighter green details on his boots. They certainly corrected one of the problems they had with their previous Green Arrow by actually painting the inside of his peg here in the forearm gold to match his bracer. They do have exactly the same accessories though, albeit the green is a little bit lighter on the new one, and they both still don't come with any shootable arrows. Just the weird clump of arrows like the last time. I think that's weird in particular because, I mean, he does have a holding an arrow finger right there. So he should come with at least one arrow he can hold attached to his bow. As mentioned, another major change is that face sculpt. He's got a gigantic mask on it, and there's an arrow on both sides of his hat. He doesn't actually have a feather in his hat. It's two arrows that have the feathers on the back. And you will find that this guy is actually a little bit limited with his articulation, although he has all the same points. So he's got the rounded hinge there, he's got the 360 bicep swivel, he's got the double crunchy elbow, he's got the rounded hinge in the wrist, the head is going to bibble bobble, he's also got waist articulation, but pretty much nothing in the torso. You know, he's a pretty articulated figure in most ways, I suppose, but where it matters is the torso, and he really should be able to shoot an arrow, which I suppose he could if he had one, but you really want to get him into a real arrow pose. You know, you got to have the hand at the corner of the mouth, the arm extended and outstretched straight, and well, aside from the fact that the bow won't reach there, I feel like this guy could use a little bit more articulation in the upper half, and especially right here in the torso. Like the rubber suit gets in the way. Cool looking figure though. Okay, and now let's do Captain Cold. This is a version of the character that I'm kind of in the middle. I'm torn on. I think that the design itself looks very good. Looks like he's wearing a great big gray thermal snowsuit with his big warm gloves and boots, huge scarf, big woolly hood. Of course, I'd rather have a comic book accurate version of the character, but you know, I'll take this. It's cool looking. And everything seems to be sculpted really, really well. There's texture everywhere. Inside of his scarfy-doo, all over the suit, the boots. This is a really, really well done figure, at least visually. This is fantastic. This is one of those figures that I get out of the box and I'm way more impressed with than I thought I was going to be. He does come with his freeze gun, except for it doesn't look anything like a gun. And that's, you know, that's going to be for obvious reasons. No guns allowed in any of the toys. Yeah, that I've used that a lot, but you get the point. It doesn't look like a gun, and so Todd can get away with having it, you know, look like he still has one, but I don't know, this looks like something out of a Star Trek episode, possibly. Getting this gun on and off his hand is actually really easy. You don't have to try to finagle his hand in there. It just comes ready to take apart. It's got two pegs, and they fit together just like that. When it's time to put the gun back in his hand, you just stick the handle back in his hand like that, and you can see you got the two nubs there, and you just stick those back together. Yeah. And ta-da! He's got his freeze gun. I like the nice touch with this design having the ice grenades around his side here. At least I think that's what they are. And also having whatever this is. I suppose I should read the comic first this time before I do the review. I did that last time. I don't know why I'm reading the comic after. I will say the face itself seems okay. Like there's nothing wrong with it. I really need to see Captain Cold's face. The classic look for him is at the very least the goggles and his bare face. It's okay. I'm actually just going to take this guy's head sculpt and put it inside that hood, and ta-da! We have, you know, at least a classic looking face on top of his snowsuited body. The cape itself here is actually a nice softish rubber. Doesn't really get in the way and hinder much at all, so that's nice. And it's just a fantastic looking original take rendition on this character. And again, if you could see his face, that would probably make it even better. How articulated is he though? Well, forward, nothing, as usual. You know, don't bet your life on it. Everything else though, as far as the torso with the waist and the upper part of his body actually articulate very well. Even his head in that hood, he gets a fairly decent range of motion for having this hood. I mean, not up, but every other way. Socket, rounded hinge, bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, and a rounded hinge at the wrist. We know the drill. We know exactly what they're going to do, so I'm not going to bother showing you. We do have... Ooh. That one clicks a bit more. You got the inside of the groin there, and like the rest of them, I mean, it's obviously going to get a fair amount of articulation there, no complaints. This is always the point that I'm checking, and I'm really going to put that through its paces. So it goes in quite nicely, not out, and that's the one that I always want to see. Double jointed knees, got the rounded hinge, toe articulation, and a pivot. That's a tight. I said toe articulation. Okay, it just has less than I thought it was going to. So overall, I would actually say that this is probably my second figure out of all of them that I'm going to review today. I actually really like this Captain Cold. And next we have Thermostat. No, his name's not Thermostat. That's what you use to regulate the temperature in your house. Heatwave. This is a weird one to me because he doesn't look like a DC character at all to me. He just looks like someone from a video game. Like maybe an alternate suit for Doom or something. I don't know. Like, it's not that the figure looks bad, and they have kept the original white and orange color scheme of Heatwave. Can't see his face, just like Captain Cold, which, you know, wish you could. But it's just a different take on this character. Like a very, very different take on the character. Obviously, you got like a fuel tank here with a lot of Metroid looking weird stuff all over the back. Cool details. Maybe I will do some painting there. You have the hose right here for the fuel that attaches to this big gun on his arm, this big heat blaster. And I figure that's probably how Todd got away with having a gun on him without having a gun on him. This doesn't come off. It would have been cooler if there was something where this actually came off, because in the comic, he actually has this removed from him. So it would have been neat if you could do that with this figure. There's not a lot as far as paint applications go. Like the belt buckle has been painted and his eyes have been painted, and there's like some darker paint here, but really pretty much everything you see has been molded in the color it's supposed to be for the most part. Heck, even these little bits of armor plating, you can see they've been inset into Heatwave's legs. And man, I know I say it every time, but I love this texturing. And I really love the design of this guy. I like this guy a lot more now that I've had him in hand and not just looked at him from afar. And I am honestly very curious what he's got for articulation. Now look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Todd knows how to articulate a character, even as big as this, to have movement in his torso downwards, not just around in a circle. So this guy gets plenty, actually not as much side to side. He does have waist articulation. That'll go 360. You got this here socket as usual, rounded hinge, gonna have a bicep swivel. Probably won't be able to do 360 on account of the fact he's got his hose will get in the way. You got the elbows. Ooh boy. Okay, so this is what you get. You get one elbow that goes right over, and the other one is like, sorry. It just won't do it because it's got that great big heat blaster on his arm, which is okay. That's fine. I would expect that. You want the big gun, then you don't get the articulation. You got his head. That's actually, that's more movement than I thought he was actually going to get. Of course, nothing back because he's got this huge chunk here. So nothing. And then down here, whoop, that's what he's got. And he's got for the knees. That's all right. Great, big, huge rounded hinge in the ankle. But because the figure is sculpted as such, it does have a little bit more limitation than maybe some people would like. You got a pivot and you got the toe. Oh, there we go. I thought it was stuck there for a second. And now why don't we look at the Atom? What you're looking at now is the Ryan Choi version of the Atom. I would have rather had Ray Palmer, because Ray Palmer is my classic. I like that version of the Atom better. Ryan Choi is still too new for me to know that much about. I haven't invested nearly enough time into getting to know the character as I probably should have. But he is a fantastically designed figure. I love this texture. I love how robotically high-tech this suit looks. He's got the Atom symbol right there on the belt, so you know exactly who you're looking at. Everything's been molded in the color it's supposed to be, except for this darker piece right here. That's been painted gray, but for the most part, everything has been molded. I guess they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. They should have at least painted that red, because it's blue there and it's red there. So they had to pick a color and I guess go with it. But honestly, that should have probably been painted. Although if I look at it, Yeah, there's no red paint apps anywhere on here, so they were saving money. That would have been 2 pennies they had to spend per figure just to paint those red. And we know he's trying to keep the cost down. Love the weird octagonal-ish pattern all over the suit here. I think that's pretty neat looking. It's not, certainly not going to get bored looking at this guy anytime soon. At least I won't. All that weird plating and stuff like that. You got his air hoses here that go up into his face masked helmet. Side note, I do believe that these are the Flash's booties, just used again for Ryan Choi here. And if they are, no complaints, because let's face it, this whole thing is newly sculpted parts, so it probably costed McFarlane Toys a butt ton to make. And really, I mean, honestly, all of these figures are newly sculpted parts that I'm holding in my hand right now. So, you know, if it's $100 average per figure, then we're looking at $400. That ain't no small potatoes, I tell you. Now, having a little peekaroo up close at the Atom's face, I think that the eyes could have been painted on perhaps a little better. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. And you know what? At the very least, it would have been kind of neat to see his actual eyeballs. What's this hole for? Can I fart in that hole? And then he'll have to breathe the air in. It'll just go directly into his mask. Now, this Atom figure does come with some accessories. He comes with a hula hoop, and he comes with 2 extra hands. It's funny because, okay, out of the hands, you get 1 open hand, which makes sense. That's it's not out of the ordinary. And then he comes with a trigger finger hand. But he doesn't come with anything that has a trigger. Now, the hula hoop just fits in that little peg in his back, like so. And then he can be all like, ooh, I have this atomy thing going around me. Ooh, I'm shrinking. Not gonna lie, I probably will not use this accessory ever. But now it's time to ask how articulated he is. Whoa, well, he can, I mean, that's way back and forward. Wait for it. It gets almost nothing. Okay, anyway, very little forward as usual, but everything else is looking good. The head, I'm not sure exactly what you were expecting, or what I was expecting anyway. You were probably looking at it like, he ain't gonna get nothing. And I'm like, yeah, why isn't he getting an articulation? Well, it's because he's got these hoses attached to his head. That's why he's gonna get like nothing. You've got this and this and this. All these are articulation points that we're well familiar with, and we know in general what McFarlane's capable of. And let's be honest, what he usually does is give us well-articulated arms. Of course, we've got the waist, which I didn't go into. I should have when I did the torso. We have down here with the groin. And what does he get? In, out, in, out, in, out. It's all right. Still has a good range of motion. He's also got the double jointed knees, like the rest of them, the rounded hinge, the toe articulation, and the ankle pivot. And that is the sum total of his articulation. Now we should take a look at the muscle-bound, poop-flinging gorilla Grodd.
Damn. Damn, boy. Damn, boy, he's thick. Boy, that's a thick-ass boy. Damn.
For reals. Massive. Like, he isn't the tallest of the mega figs, for sure. But what he lacks in height, he makes up for in girth. These big, bushy, furry, massive Popeye forearms. And this is not the body right here of someone who is a bodybuilder gorilla. This is a powerlifter gorilla. Look at that. So thick around the waist. My goodness. Big guy. He's got his gold and orange, what'd you call that? Battle loincloth? Look at that. They've even detailed his underneath undies for the loincloth. Got the orange and gold again, and on the shoulders, all comic accurate to the source material. Even the cape, they didn't cheapen on it. The cape actually is this color in the source material. Fantastic. The size of this guy, as you can see, right here totally makes up for the fact that the previous one was perhaps a lot too small. This guy is truly massive, having not only the hands of a gorilla, but also the feet of a gorilla. Of course, Grodd's face sculpt looks really angry and upset because, of course it does. When does he not look upset and malcontent? It's well done. Pretty simple. I mean, the sculpt does most of the work. It's just the teeth and the eyes that need to be painted with some highlights over the snout and the mouth. And he does have those same highlights all over his torso. They've done a great job digitally sculpting the hair for this guy. Now, let's check his articulation. Will you be able to get him in any reasonable poses or not? Well, clearly he's got the whole world in his hands. His arms go nice and out. Doesn't have the socket for the arm to sit in, but he does have the regular rounded hinge that is very articulated. I wonder what these elbows will do. I'm still pushing them. Ooh, that's it. I'm stubborn. I'm going to push them again. Nope, that's all that these elbows get. Well, wait a minute. Does one get more? I think that one seems to get a little bit more. They do rotate, though. At least I'm guessing. I'm betting. If they don't, then I'll be surprised. Let's find out. Yep, they rotate. Knew it. Knew they were going to rotate because that's a Todd thing. When they don't have double jointed elbows, they at least will usually rotate. He's also got a huge hinge in the wrist. I wonder if it's one of the noticeable ones after you've moved it. That's not bad at all. It's actually rounded and not super ugly. The head actually has a lot bigger range of motion than you would think, considering it's so massive with that gigantic soft rubber helmet. Gets a lot more motion than you would think. Nothing in the torso, obviously. I mean, you can see there's no line for it. And the next piece of articulation is in the waist. He can't really lean forward. His big powerlifter gut gets in the way, but every other way he seems to be... No, he pretty much sucks except for going around in a circle with a little bit of motion at the waist. Down here, that's what he's got. And that is... What? Uh-oh. Oh, well, that wasn't planned. Maybe we should put him back together. There. All right. So, word of warning. Be careful. This is not a super tight fit to the torso. Then again, I am reaching around more than most people probably will. The legs... that's okay. Does it? Okay, well, look. He has plenty of roundy motion. I wish they all could do that. Every time I find one that has great motion, I'm like, do that with the rest of them. We have the knees single jointed. And that's pretty much it. Now, oh yes, and they will rotate as well, which is normal. And we have his feet. No toe articulation because really, I suppose, if you have big sausage toes like that, how do you add the articulation? And you're just going to get the ankle, which is round, and that's it. No pivot, just goes in a circle. So that is the sum total of Gorilla Grodd's articulation. Now, what do I think about all of these figures? These page puncher figures from McFarlane Toys. Gorilla Grodd, Heatwave, Captain Cold, the Atom, Batman, and Green Arrow. Dude, keep them coming because these figures have all been fantastic. And the previous wave, wave 1 of the 7-inch scale page punchers, was also really well done. As I said, probably my favorite is the Batman, followed by Captain Cold, and then I would have to say Gorilla Grodd, the Atom, and then Heatwave, and Green Arrow. In that order, yes. If you happen to find these guys hanging on the pegs out in the wild as they are starting to hit stores at retail, don't hesitate to pick them up because I'm telling you, especially Grodd and the Atom and Batman, they're going to be gone because they're going to be, I'm guessing, the biggest sellers. But I definitely like all of these figures and I've made a place for them in my collection already where they're going to be safe and sound amongst friends or enemies. Anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Have yourself a super fantastic, awesome DC day, and I will see you with the next one, super friends. Bye for now.